Are you someone who is harder on themselves than other people? If so, you're going to want to listen to this episode. This is Ariana Rollins, and you're listening to Mindful Manifesting. But before we dive in, if you would like to kickstart your intentions, your goals, your objectives for this year, I invite you to go to mindfulachiever.com, get it for free, kickstart your manifesting journey. And it's a great little guided worksheet and meditation. I think you'll love it. All right. So, funnily enough, I recorded the notes for this podcast episode, oh my gosh, 2.5 years ago. And I realized today I didn't record it. I did not share it with you. So I think it's really important because we live on a planet that is stressed, not only physically with resources, but a lot of people are stressed economically, and a lot of people are just pushed to the limit to just get through the day and make a living and raise families and have some kind of inner peace and friendship and social time. And I think things have accelerated. I recorded this not recorded, but I made notes in January 2023. So that's 3 years ago, right? So I think this is probably more relevant even today. All right. So I rarely share deeply personal things about my life, but this is an important one. And I think it will help others if I share it. So you don't need to know all the details, just the results of what happened. So from January 2022 to January 2023, my life turned upside down. I didn't realize the significance of it until I wasn't able to rise above the mindset, that coping mindset I had created. These were huge losses. My home, death of my beloved dog, and to add to that, I was going through a deep dive financially and emotionally, and I'm just about to talk about it with you because it's in the past. One of the things I will share with you, if something is very deep and transformative and you're feeling either fear or great loss, sometimes it's wise to not speak about it because it can activate. It can destabilize us. But once it's been settled, and I'm not in this place at all, 3 years later, we can share it with someone because who knows, it might help someone along the way. So these destabilizing changes, they weren't just one. It was another and another, and they were huge. And it's the kind of thing that a part of us might want to just push in the background, ignore it, and say, I just got to get on with life because we have to make decisions. And maybe you're in a position where you have to move. And that was one of the things I had to do. And I didn't want to. It was my favorite place that I have lived other than Windsor, England. So I can't say I had a little mini meltdown. I will say that there was this background anxiety that was happening because I wanted to handle life and I wanted to kind of be on top of the decisions that were pressing me. And I had to. Sometimes we just have to, whether we have that emotional clarity or not. And if you follow human design at all and you're emotionally defined, you know that your clarity could take time. But sometimes decisions are being demanded upon us. And it can create like an instability. We don't know. We can't force a decision. It's like, throw a dart, right? And without that clarity, that peacefulness, that knowing, yeah, this is the right path, we spin things around. So, as I mentioned, I didn't realize the significance and the accumulated consequence of all those losses until I started to reflect on what I'd been going through. And that's why I wanted to share this with you. Because since I've started my personal growth and spiritual path, like at a very serious, focus level in my 20s, one of my strategies was to see myself get this, in the worst light possible. I'll give you an example. I'd read a book about a spiritual master, and I would see all the negative things in myself, the things that were not like the spiritual master. And I did that thinking it inspired me to grow and evolve. And yeah, it was helpful to a certain point because it helped me recognize that when the ego was running my life, and it helped me become a better person. I became sensitive and compassionate to other people's struggles. But over 30 years of that hard on myself mindset, it was very hard to change it, very hard to kick it away. And what I realized when I was prepping for this podcast 3 years ago now, I saw how mean it is to be hard on ourselves when we're mean girling ourselves or mean boying ourselves. That when we're going through something that's painful, we wouldn't ever think to do that to a friend. We would hold them and we would say, "You're doing well. This is a lot." We'd never do that to a friend or loved one. We'd encourage them. We'd remind them of all the good choices they've made. We'd remind them of the goodness inside of them. We'd build them up. We would not keep pointing out the terrible choices and decisions that they made over their lifetime and, future pacing and catastrophizing. We wouldn't do that. But if someone is very hard on themselves, they exactly do that. They keep pointing out all the failures, all the choices that didn't work out. And we could think, well, it's helping me not make a terrible choice again. But that's the conundrum. In a negative mindset of looking at all my terrible choices and decisions, it is impossible, my friends. It's impossible to make a clean, good choice. It's tainted by the negativity, tainted by the fear of repeating the past. And what's interesting about getting into what I would call a timid mindset. Timid. We're anxious. We're hesitating. Not really negative, but timid, unsure, lacking confidence, lacking belief in ourselves or our path. A timid mindset will cause us to contract. We don't want to make an error. So what do? We hold back. We kind of go into an emotional or internal cave. And here's the thing. It's successful because we can't fail if we don't act, right? We can't fail if we don't make a decision. So getting out of a timid mindset is most interesting because it's not easy to recognize it. There's something spiritual about being gentle and holding back. The world acknowledges that and encourages that. We are the kind of people that are easy to be around. As a general population, especially I will say this for women, we're not encouraged to be bold and assertive. Femininity can be associated with softness, passiveness, and timidity. That's feminine. That's attractive, right? So we're not going to get guidance in the outside world how to overcome that timid part of ourselves. What do? What do I do? That's exactly where I was 3 years ago. The first step that I became aware of is to not speak about my losses or my fears or concerns, what was going on at the time. I realized it only grew the situation, and it made it more mountain-like, unsolvable. And the other thing was to choose my confidants wisely. We all need to talk things through, but only do that with someone who loves you and supports you unconditionally, and they're allowing you to make your own decision. Anyone who's trying to refine you, correct you, or make you into a better person is not a good person to hold space for you as you recover your strength and fortitude. Second step is to catch yourself when you're being hard or negative on yourself. Now, this was harder than I realized because of the lifelong pattern of not wanting to have a big ego and be self-aggrandizing. So where's the middle point? Are we timid or are we self-aggrandizing? Is there a middle path? That's what I'm trying to explore now, because the self-aggrandizing or boasting of what I did well feels fake, false. It's like putting me on top of a mountaintop and other people I'm looking down on. It's not authentic. It's not real. And that's not going to get me out of a timid mindset. It'll just propel me back into timidity because that's not who I want to be, like a pendulum swinging back and forth. So for now, and I remember as I was working through this, I surrounded myself with loving and encouraging thoughts. Doesn't mean I have to reflect on all the big wins and victories and successes and beat my chest like an ape, but just ask myself, is this a loving thought? Is this something I would say to someone else? Asking myself, is this true? And has it always been true? That's a good one, right? And if you do this, it'll help you catch the negative thoughts because it can't always ever be true, right? There are going to be situations where it's not true. So we'll doubt that thought, which is a good thing. So as we start to kind of wrap up this episode, I realized that I love working with people who are hard on themselves. Go figure, right? Because I can recognize it. And I can recognize the pain of that person who is harder on themselves than anybody else could be. They'll give everyone else the benefit of the doubt, but be tough on themselves when they made a mistake or aren't living up to their potential. And recently I realized the reason I love working with people like that, not only because it's me, it's because I feel I can make the most impact. And I remember getting teary as I wrote out this script because I'm going to share something that few people know about me. When I was a child, my nickname was Meeky, like as in meek. And I did my best to be invisible because I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be noticed. The world was harsh for a sensitive little girl. And being invisible helped me fade into the background. I wouldn't get noticed. I wouldn't get pulled out and criticized. But as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, being invisible is not a pattern for success, is it? So if you're resonating at all with this episode and you yourself have been a meek person, I would love for you to reach out to me because being hard on yourselves does make you feel like a good person because no one else is going to be calling you out on the carpet. No one else is criticizing you because you're on it. And so you can turn up quotes around it as your best face, your best self, and no one's going to call you out on not turning up fully and wholly. So that's why I love working with timid, sensitive people who have huge gifts to bring to the world, but they're too hard on themselves to move forward. So this is something I want to share with you to play with and see if it resonates with you. Surround yourself with your friends and loved ones with the highest possible who are operating with a good expression, and maybe start to see the highest possible expression of who they might become or be. See the best in others, which I know you do, but also see the best in yourself. See the highest possible expression of who you might become this year, 2026, and start to recognize when the ego personality replays what you think, your opinion of them, of who they are or who they are not. And also when your ego personality starts playing the vision of you that disappoints, is not living up to your potential. Having that vision of someone else, can cause them to turn up as we see them to be. Because there's no room or space to become something else or someone else. They will step into that space that we've created. How about if we create that space for ourselves? Imagine you're doing that for yourself every day. If that opinion comes from the ego personality that says that's who you are, that's how you've always been, that's what you're capable of, I guarantee it's wrong. And it can only prevent you. What if we envisioned maybe the improbable? That might be closer to who we truly are than the ego personality, will permit us to see about ourselves or others. And here's a painful truth. If we are hard on ourselves and we judge ourselves, we can't not do that to other people. So it's a gift to help release the harshness and the judging that we do to ourselves, because we'll be able to be more present and loving for others. Maybe that would be motivating to you, because often we want to turn up for others in the best way possible, right? So by far we are harder on ourselves than others can be, but that's not a loving way to live. That's not the way as an entrepreneur that you want to turn up, because you want to have that confidence, that knowing, that passion that makes people want to follow you and your message. Doesn't feel good when we're hard on ourselves. Doesn't feel good when we're judging others. But sometimes we need to pause. We need to catch those thoughts, and we need to wrestle them to the ground and tell them that's not always true. I remember when I was not that way. I remember when my friend Joey was not that way. So let's question our thoughts. Let's wrestle them to the ground. Let's be a little gentler and kinder on ourselves. Let's not share all of the worries and the concerns with people who don't get us, who don't hold us and love us unconditionally, because that's another way we're hurting ourselves. So thank you so much for listening. I hope the show was helpful. Maybe pass it along to someone who is also hard on themselves. Maybe it will inspire, uplift them. Until then, be loving and kind to yourself. And imagine that when we are more loving and kind to ourselves, the world will also be more loving and kind. And we know having a positive mindset can help attract good things. And isn't manifesting about attracting good things to our life, good people to our life? So much love. And as we wrap up, remember, as you confirm yourself, you chart your own path to success. Bye for now.